Welcome to the Age Well Home and Lifestyle podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Bradley. I'm the founder of Age Well Home and Lifestyle. This podcast is rooted in one essential truth. To age well and thrive, we must be radically curious. Curious about who we really are, about what truly matters. Curious enough to question everything we've been told so we can finally design a life and home that reflects our truest selves. Here we treat life as our masterpiece. We see ourselves as detectives gathering clues, uncovering our deepest gifts, and consciously curating a lifestyle and home that is both healing and fulfilling. Join me for solo episodes and conversations with guests where I help us get closer to the root of living our best lives in mid-age and beyond. Courtney is a professional organizer and designer with a BFA in interior design, dedicated to helping midlife homeowners and small business owners create spaces that are both functional and inspiring. Through her decluttering, organizing, and design expertise, she builds efficient, sustainable systems that transform cluttered environments into calm, livable, and workable spaces. Her approach blends practicality with heart, whether she's guiding clients through her signature 5-step decluttering process, helping people organize with safety and aging in place in mind, or reimagining spaces that reflect each person's stage of life. From linen closets to whole home transformations, she empowers clients to reclaim their space, reduce stress, and reorganize a home they can enjoy for years to come. Welcome, Courtney, and I am so excited to talk about decluttering. Decluttering, absolutely. Decluttering is literally one of my favorite things because when we declutter, it gives us space and freedom and more clarity. So today we're talking about decluttering in midlife and beyond. So it could be somebody downsizing, it could be somebody just moving into a fresh space, it could be somebody staying in their own home, yet just wanting to create a new space. So share with us your tips. Courtney here, she's an organizer, professional organizer, which is so yummy.
Yes.
So yeah, share with us some tips.
Well, I basically have five, steps that I recommend. Um, but the most important thing when you are starting to get organized is to declutter. You have to declutter. You can't just organize and not declutter. It is so important. I really, really drive this to all of my clients. Also, it helps you narrow down the decisions about what stays and what goes. And that's basically it. Yeah. In in the decluttering process, you must do that. And then, as far as the 5 steps, you definitely want to start small, but start in a space that doesn't either get used a lot, or maybe it's a place, like a linen closet or your pantry, that there's no emotional attachments and it's an easy place to get start with. To start with, also guest bedrooms are good to start with as well because you're not in that space and there's no emotional attachments in that space either. Or if it's like a home office, that's also a good place to start as well. But yeah, so you want to start small, obviously. So, going room by room really does help. So even if you just start with one room in one day, that's fine. That's totally fine. And if you want to take a day or two off because it was too much for you, that's fine. Um, and then also, the other step is to have a clear intention or a goal in mind.
Oh, I love that.
That's something that comes with the decluttering process. It's very important, what's your intention or goal for this space? And that's what we really start with even before we declutter. It's sort of like a step 1 and 2 are kind of, intertwined them together because you really have to, I really sit down with clients and say, what's your intention with this space? What is your goal with this space? How do you want to, better utilize the space? Are you going to be aging in place? Are you going to be downsizing in place? Are you going to be moving it anytime soon? are your kids going to be moving out because they graduated from college and they have their own place and they have their own income and all that stuff. So that's another big step. That's another step that we actually do, that I actually do sit down with clients. That's probably actually more like a step 1 and 2 together. I usually kind of combine those together. And then
And if I can say something about those two, I love that because I feel like what you said in one, starting small, it's like, okay, just get started. You got to get started. But then don't forget your intention. So it's like you can set your intention and goal first or just get started. Because oftentimes we put it off and avoid it. And instead, and I feel like working with somebody like you is fantastic because you're not doing it alone. You're doing it with other people. You're verbalizing, this is my intention, and we're going to get started. And go ahead. I know you have more tips that will go into the details.
Yeah. And also, to your point about just getting started, you have to, once you set your goal and your intention, then the decluttering starts. And so with decluttering, I like to set up, at least, use the 3 box rule, the 3 bag rule with, but sometimes I add like a fourth one in there, which is consign.
Ooh, yes.
So my 4 or 5, I should say, are so 1 box or bag is for keep, donate, not sure, we're still deciding, and then we usually can come back to that, and then there's the consign, and then anything that can be recycled, and then there's just trash, in general. And I do know all the resources for doing that, for donating, for recycling, for consigning, things like that. So that really helps to narrow down your decisions about things.
Yeah.
And we can always come back to the not sure pile or the not sure box or the not sure bag. Because, in the end, once we have sorted everything, then we can come back to that not sure box and say, okay, do we really want to hold on to this piece of clothing or, or to this item or whatever it may be. So in that sense, I know all the resources for that, which is great. Where to consign, where to donate, where to recycle, all that stuff, which I do tell my clients about.
And I love this process because it prevents decision fatigue or decision paralysis when it's like, okay, you have an object and it's like, oh my God, I don't know what I want to do with this one. And you have these bins and you have the not sure. So it's like, don't get too stuck on one thing, especially the things that have emotional attachments. I think that's the hardest.
Yes.
So if that just goes into the not sure, then in another space and time, maybe you're in a different mindset. You can go back to that and say, yeah, I really do want to keep this, or no, I'm ready to get rid of it. Yeah. And understanding that so much of this is emotional for people.
It really is.
Having compassion for that, listening. And I know you're a great listener, and I know you value the meaning behind stuff. Because
absolutely.
It's the meaning people want to keep.
Yes, absolutely. And sometimes, you can't always, hang on to that piece of clothing or that item that, you were, 20 years ago. But some people, they either donate or they even take a picture of it.
Yes.
Or they have it framed, or they have it, encased in something where they can, look at it every day. And also with having a professional organizer, it's sort of like a neutral party. I'm not a family member. I'm not your friend. I'm not your husband. I'm not your kids. I am a neutral party person that can really sit down with you and help you with the organizing and, well, actually, take that back, with the decluttering and organizing process. Because I've had clients who just don't, they really need my help, and and they're just stuck. And I say, okay, how do you want, what's your goal? What's your intention? And a lot of times it gets emotional for people, and
Yeah.
it's really hard. And you just have to hold their hand, and you just have to let them, hold on to the memories. Um, I mean, it's so important to keep, items in your home that you love, that hold a memory for you. But not everything, but you don't have to keep everything.
Yeah. And
Only that,
you create that space. It's holding that space for them to say, yeah, this was part of me, but
yeah,
do I really need it? And something you mentioned in regards to taking pictures, I know something I've done with clients in the past when they were decluttering, and I'm not doing the decluttering with them anymore, but taking pictures of everything, like you said, creating a photo album, kind of photo album, putting it in an album, writing a little something next to it.
yeah,
And
if
it
they
just,
want to do that too.
yeah, and they have this
Exactly.
whole book of memories.
Yeah.
And if somebody has dementia, Alzheimer's, whatever it might be, you take this to the next place, and you always have this book of images and pictures and writings
Yes.
that
Yeah,
sometimes can
absolutely.
spark memory.
Absolutely. And there are online companies. One of them is called a Snapfish, and
Oh,
you can you can make you can basically make like a digital photo album. And so you create an account, and then you upload all your photos, and you can make like a digital photo album, which my mom actually made one for me for our wedding. And it's great because they're actually photos, but they're all digital, but they're actually printed out in this cool book that I have, and that's something that, yeah, I think is a really good idea for people who want to hold on to this stuff, but they don't have the space for it.
yeah.
And that's where you take out your iPhone, and you take a picture, and maybe you put it in one of those a photo album books.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, a
Good resource.
Snapfish. I think there's another one. I forget what it's called. Oh, Shutterfly also does the same thing.
I've
Um,
used that one for things.
yeah, as well. And then, so moving on to step four, sort of, as the decluttering, a process begins, you also want to think about your safety and, your aging, which is, aging in place, or downsizing in place. Um, and think about, accessibility in the future, so that if you do need to get access to something, you're not going to hurt yourself, you're not going to fall down, you're not going to break a bone, things like that. Um, and just make it more, making, your home and your space more functional, um, as you age in place, as we're doing the whole decluttering process, and being able to access those items later in life, as you get older, so that you can access them easily without having to get on a ladder and bring down this heavy bin, and bring down this box. Those items need to be, on the floor, tucked away in a closet, or you know, or in a room, or wherever you want to store them.
Yeah.
Maybe you have a shelf, and you have all your important bins, and they're easily accessible right there.
Yeah.
And I do recommend that when you do use bins, that they be clear, so you can see what's in them. And also I recommend to label too as well. But yes, definitely, with all my clients, you know, having, the safety in mind of, the aging in place and the
Yes.
downsizing in place. You want to be able to, access those things, but you don't want to risk, oh my God, this heavy box is on the shelf, and, I can't get to it. And, that's that's a risk right there, that you could fall and really hurt yourself.
Yeah.
And so, with that, I really, think about, accessibility, even if you, and also if you have like a physical disability as well, you want to be able to access those things very easily.
I'm so glad you brought that up because a huge part of the reason people fall is because of accidents in the house, trying to get things down, slipping here, there. So making sure you're taking into consideration, yes, we're decluttering and we're creating space, and then to rethink that space and how to organize it to be safe. I love there's so many resources these days in regards to cabinets that come down, or even again microwave in the center island as opposed to above a stove.
Exactly.
You have to be smart in how you reorganize.
Nice.
So
Absolutely.
and not everybody thinks about that safety and function. And this is a part of my own work in regards to reframing the thinking of that. A lot of people mid-age that say, oh, well, that doesn't matter. That's for older people. But we need to think about this. I mean, any time is a good time to think about it, but especially at mid-age when we're most of the time doing some kind of transition to be confident and feel good, to make aging in place and universal design cool.
Yes, absolutely.
It's just smart to think about it earlier. So I'm so glad you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then also with the whole safety thing, there are a lot of bins and there are a lot of things that have wheels on them. So, and a lot of them have handles. So if you want to easily take something out of the closet that has wheels and you're not really able to actually, pick it up and move it from the closet, if it's on wheels with a handle, I do recommend something like that as well. And even drawers where you can actually, pull out the actual drawer and it's really easy to take it out and to take out the items from that drawer. Because it's, because as you age, even if, you're in your, 30s or 40s, but you have parents who are just a little bit older, obviously, I mean, there's that risk. And so, you want to, I always keep that in mind for all of my clients. It's just important. And then, sort of my last step is, plan, for the maintenance and emotional support. I mean, you have to, have a plan to stay organized. And that's where the step number 2 kind of comes into play a little bit with, setting a clear goal and, an intention. And just, and that's also, where, as a professional organizer, I come in and, I'm your emotional support for you.
Yeah.
And, if you want, your kids involved in this process, that's great. But, I'm going to be the neutral party over here. But I will hold your hand, and I do understand these things. I mean, and there are a lot of roadblocks that come up, and they're like, oh, I want to keep this just because, or I want to keep this, just in case. And I have to tell clients, there's not going to be a time where you're ever going to need this anymore. And I understand that you want to hold on just in case and just because, but it's really time to let it go, and it's time to move on from this. And, and a lot of times there's a little bit of a struggle with that, but that's okay. But yeah, I do have to be, kind of, upfront with my clients about that.
Yeah.
And, you have to.
A little tough love.
A little tough love. Yes, absolutely. So, yeah. Yep.
Oh, I love that.
Yep.
And something I'm thinking about too is, okay, somebody has decluttered, they've organized, and through the process, I feel like because you've helped them witness the emotional aspects of things, then moving forward, they have more of a strategy that in life they can just gradually be smarter with their decisions in not keeping what doesn't serve their highest good and keeping what does serve their highest good.
Exactly.
So how do you work with clients? Do you do like after a month or 2 months, 3 months, like updates, things like that? I feel like it would be so helpful to like check in occasionally with them to be like, how is your space doing? How are you doing?
Yeah. Yes, I do. I mean, I had a client over the summer, and I kind of helped her out a little bit, but then she was busy, with her own family, and then trying to get a job, and then starting a business, and so, yeah, I do like to check in with clients and, make sure they're doing okay and,
Yeah,
what's
that's good.
going on and, do you need my help and I mean, I mean, and if you do need my help, then yes, I am here to help you. And, maybe, you're a little bit stuck and you can't remember, how something was organized or, how we did this. And then I come in and, and I show them and they're like, oh, yeah, 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 I remember now. Um, I
That's
mean,
fantastic.
yeah. And it's just, I mean, I mean, just as as an example,
Yeah, please share an example of
yeah,
a
yeah,
story.
a story. Well, I'll keep it short. So the client was actually my own mother who lives in Chicago, where I'm from, and she is a perfect example of a downsizing in place and aging in place client. Um, but she knew she needed my help, but also because I'm her daughter and I'm an expert in this field, she was so grateful for my help and just being overwhelmed because she was like, I'm so overwhelmed and I need help with this. And we did apply, the 5 steps, and we did set up specific, piles for things of where they were going to go. They may have been, a little bit different, but they were basically the same 5, you know, you know, piles of boxes or bags.
Yeah.
And then, using those 5 steps obviously, really helped. I mean, yeah, there were, some emotional moments. I mean, my mom, this is, a few years ago, but my mom's mother had passed away when I was in high school, and she hadn't cleaned out her purse since she passed away 20 plus years ago. And it was so funny because she's
Oh,
like, I don't understand why I didn't clean this up, but it was
oh my
really cute.
gosh.
It, it
That's
was
kind
really
of
sweet.
amazing. Yes, how
Yeah,
neat, like
yeah.
a treasure
I
chest
mean,
to
it
go
was like
back
a,
into.
yeah, it really was like a little treasure chest, and it was so
Oh,
cute, and it just was like, oh, it was such a funny, cute, moment. But my grandmother used to call him her pocketbook. That's what she
yeah.
called her purse, her pocketbook.
Yep.
So,
I
so,
totally. Even
yeah,
my mom called hers her pocketbook.
yeah, exactly. And then I also helped her, repurpose spaces. Like I turned her old home office into like a sitting reading room. And she found like a crochet arms, had a reupholstered it, and there's like a small little dresser, and then she has this little nightstand with all of her books. And then there's like a small TV, so if she wants to watch TV up there as well, she can do that. But it really turned into just a lovely, cozy reading space for her to sit and read, and it's really cozy. And she had the room repainted, but and then she donated the furniture to a local organization in Chicago. But it just was, I mean, she never even thought about it. And
Yeah.
when we were kind of, going through the process of, getting Linda stuff, she's like, yeah, I want to make this into like a sitting room where I can sit, especially in the wintertime when it's really cold and, you don't want to sit downstairs, but it's a little warmer upstairs. She can sit upstairs and, have her dinner and watch TV or read a book or, whatever.
Yeah.
Um, and then there's this other room that we worked on. It was a little skinny room in our house because it's a old house, circa 1910. And over the years, it just become sort of like a dumping ground. But she had to have it remodeled, but that's a different story. And so so in the process of cleaning out that room, we turned it into sort of like an art studio type
Oh.
thing because she has some flat files, so those are in there. So those were already in there anyway. And then there was a desk that was in my room, so she put that in there. And then it's sort of like her home office art studio desk,
Yeah.
which is kind of what it is. But she really likes it because she got back into drawing and painting again, and she just really loved it. And she also had to have new crank out windows, and so all the light that comes in there is perfect for her little art studio. And even just by repurposing these 2 spaces, you really are thinking about your aging in place, your downsizing in place. How do you want to better utilize this space so that when you do go to sell your house, people can say, oh, okay, I can make the bathroom bigger because it's sort of like flex spaces. Oh, I can make, this bedroom bigger, because they're 2 small rooms at the front of the house and the back of the house.
Yeah.
So it gives people an idea, okay, I can really you know, you know, maybe repurpose these 2 rooms and make them either bigger or smaller or whatever, um, for their needs. But it does give you, it does give people an idea about, in terms of selling your home as
Yeah.
well. But even just, the whole aging in place. Um,
Well,
but I like to also call it downsizing in place,
yeah.
as well as aging in place, because this is a perfect example of downsizing in place, because I
You
have
got it.
helped my mom over the last few years that I've been here. The last time I was there, I helped her clean out her basement, and that was a big job. It was a really big job.
Well, going back to one thing before we go on to anything else, the idea of reimagining spaces. So you helping them declutter, you start to get to know them, understand them, and bringing up that idea of, well, whether you're midlife, aging in place, no matter what age really, what are your true self desires and how do we
Exactly.
create spaces to allow you to live that easily? So you
Exactly.
making your mother a reading nook, like cozy, how do you want them to feel? How do you want to feel in your space?
Exactly.
And then the art
Exactly.
studio bringing out just more creativity in her life.
Exactly.
I
Because
I
that's what
love
she
that.
used to do. And she used to draw and paint for years, and she was a graphic designer. And just really, being able to repurpose these spaces, it really just, you know, it really brought out a sense of, okay, she knows she can stay in the house, a little while longer. She knows that she can really utilize these 2 spaces so much better,
Yeah.
than before.
And an
And I've had that
excitement.
with clients too, as well. I mean, like I said, the one client that I helped over the summer, I really helped her declutter and reorganize this one space, and it just totally changed the feel and look of the room. And she just was just like, "Thank you so much. Like, I had no idea that I could repurpose it and reimagine it this way." And
Yes.
it really comes out. And that's, where the decluttering and organizing comes in. It allows you to reimagine that space into something
Yes.
else, and to be able to say, okay, now I can age in place in my home. Now I can actually stay in my home because I
Yeah.
love my home,
Yeah.
even though I may, sell it in, several many years down the road. But for now, I'm going to stay here,
And it's
and
a
I want to stay.
newfound excitement.
It really is.
It's a
It
new
really is.
space, even though it's not a brand new house. It's a new energy in the space.
It really is. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
It's totally amazing.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is fantastic. I love all your tips. So share with everybody where you're at. I know you're in Hillsboro. Do you also service clients long distance? Tell people where they can find your website and all of that good information.
Yes. So even though I live in Hillsboro, Oregon, I do serve all of the Washington County area, which includes, Beaverton and Tigard and Newburgh and, Sherwood,
That's a good
like
amount of space.
Oswego, etc.
Yeah.
Basically, and then also the Portland metro area, which is a different jurisdiction, obviously, than Washington County. So yeah, and then my website is organizeddesigns.com, with one D, so you can find me on there, and then all my contact info is on there. And I prefer local services virtually versus doing virtual, because I need to see the space. I really
Yeah.
need to see it. Um, and then if you are a senior citizen, or a veteran, I do offer 20%
Oh,
off off of my total services. So when I send you the invoice, there will be a 20% discount from the total, um, just because, I like to. Um, and
I
then,
love that.
I work with all types of clients, but basically, someone, who really needs my help to get organized, or maybe,
Yeah.
they're downsizing or aging in place and they need my help. And, maybe they're, empty nesters, like my mom has been for many, many years. And, they just don't know what to do with all their kids' stuff. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's, but yeah, um, excuse me. But yeah, those are, where to find me on my website and everything. And
And I will link everything in the show notes and all of that good stuff too, so they will be able to find you.
yeah, absolutely. And also for on my website, it also has all of my pricing and what I charge and everything. So if you have any questions, you can always email me as well. Um, and then, but yeah, again, my website really spells it out, has all my information, all my pricing, all my services, what I do. Um, yeah,
Excellent.
absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you so much for all of this
Thank you so much. I
information.
really appreciate it. This has been fun. Thank you.
Absolutely. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Age Well Home and Lifestyle podcast. If this episode sparks something in you, share it with a friend or family member. Let it be the start of a real life, meaningful conversation, because that's how we grow together. And I'd love to hear from you. What topics are you curious about? What questions are on your mind? Reach out and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious, live true, and keep creating a life and home that's aligned with your truest self.